Okay, shut up, Noah.
You may continue.
Alright, is everyone ready? Except for Noah. Are you ready, Noah?
What do you mean? Like I
I'm kidding. Wait, but it's like, everyone ready? Okay. Because nobody, regardless of gender, sexual orientation, age, creed, or nationality, deserves domestic abuse, I affirm the plight of other closeted lesbian and cancer different from the plight of the young, arranged bride in Pakistan, even though the topic is complex and multifaceted, the AC proves the truth that holds all persons. The applicant's permissibility for due to the phrase morally permissible in the resolution hands and defines moral permissibility. An age act morally permissible, the action of the body's practical and supremacy justified force of any is not successfully defeated by any moral considerations. Permissible action includes obligatory action, obligatory action must be allowed before we can obligate to take it. The resolution says permissible for victims investigating violence, defend themselves deadly force, not that they ought to do so. This gives victims a license to right to act when they choose, but not a mandate to always act. That this adds on specific scenarios to prove when victims are obligated not to act, not to prove that they can have the right to act because the text questions whether victims of domestic abuse have the opportunity to deadly force. Domestic violence defined as violence towards one's spouse or domestic partner purpose interprets A as most predictable. The topic like commonly understands domestic abuse, physical injury, abuse, or after defend the use of deadly force in response to ambiguous threats and challenges untenable. Even some claims of domestic violence causes all the harm to the victim. Physical violence is always necessary to the combination of facts we call domestic violence. Repeated defined as occurring again and again. Interprets A. If repeated is meant in the past, I'd have to defend present deadly force against two slaps 10 years ago, which is observed after ground because the definition doesn't provide a present threat of violence, and B is reinforced by the topic lit. Most literature assumes the victims are engaged, therefore allowed to show back. Prefer reasonable affect interprets there are multiple legitimate interpretations of all the topicality violations regardless of what interpret I choose. And if my advocacy function of the interp don't vote me down, this is the fairest way to evaluate T because it shows that T is sort of enabling ANC strategy instead of skewing the one AR. I value morality, meta-ethic frameworks such as defense, check one comes to arguments, warrants, standard meta-ethics claims the ask question, which is right from the answer, in a constrained over ways. I advocate the meta-ethic framework of practical reason. The argument is not that all fields must have some reason they favor, rather, the argument that ethical are only bias flaws, they flow the structure itself, for this framework is first. Only rational accounts of ethics can explain the bias morality rationalized closed on reflection. If one has to be reason to be rational, was argument with self-standard rationality, which is the only way to avoid moral skepticism. Second rationality is the only place to explain universality of moral responsibility, holding all agents responsible, presupposes any agent can know the relevant facts in which they are judged for as moral rules, where an empirical matter, those brought up from wrong communities, but up to false fact and wrong with the agent of the fact. Correct reason theorists can explain this as rational requirements, noble a priori, because reasons are not circumstantial, governed hypotheticals, reasons need to apply to anyone at any time, meaning universality is necessary for practical reason. As a moral agent, the rational positive neither depends on another for ourselves we act, we must accept the freedom of other persons. Angstrom. Upon the foreign universe involves consent with possible every time to show the judge asserting the goodness of every subject acting on a max deeming good, every subject acting on others out of fear, view all good if they're out of fear, they're deeming good both the extension limitation they own, and others out of fear, the judges are consistent. Additionally, the capacity of rational choice falls the ability to ends for ourselves, pursue the capacity that ends the power that transcends each individual person. We cannot only evaluate ourselves by contradiction course guard. Suppose you ask me what do you have the right to vote, in virtue of what do you have the right to vote, I reply, I'm an American citizen. You say, well, I'm an American citizen, choose not the right to vote. It would not make sense for me to respond, no, only my American citizenship. As that normal case, the form of humanity, choose humanity like that, ask in virtue of what do we have the right to perform an order of value on an ends and ask our humanity? We should respect the normal percent of people have in virtue of humanity. This is the attitude you cannot really take up only toward your humanity. Therefore, respect for others can follow directly from my own rationality. However, interpersonal affairs is obligation to take the form of preserving rightful on which because everyone must be able to set their own ends. Ripstein 1. A person is a being capable of setting his own purposes and thinks something can use to pursue whatever purpose that person might have. The classic example of a person being treated as a mere thing as a slave. Slaves not set its own ends, but is merely a means for the ends set by someone else. The right to be your master is neither the right to have things go well for you nor the right to have whatever options. Instead, it is interpersonal. Your master is something that I know their master is not. A claim about your relation to yourself, only about your relation to others. The right to equal freedom is just right. No other person to be the master of another. The right to be your master. The system of equal freedom generates Kant calls and internal duty of right from all was consistent duty expressed by saying do not make yourself a mere means for others, but at the same time not for them. Thus, the standard of preserving rightful honor. Preserving rightful honor is a you have to let yourself be treated as mere means for another. One is treated as mere means, but by another one they have the final state of what ends you may take up. Utilitarian or non-intentional harms cannot be the grounds for restricting the freedom of a person, since they treat the person as a mere means to the end of others or nature. I contend that domestic violence absolve the family, civil society, creates the state of nature, justifying the use of first or instance of domestic violence, state federal obligation to protect the victim during the beating when the state bills protect the citizen, temporary state of nature is induced conflict between the citizen, the state is nullified. Thompson. Rights all handed over to the state by consent, the corresponding for justification to go with them. Even when the state exists, it will often, after the attack, will justify defense. Response occurs when the state is incapable of intervention. Here, the rug is drawn back. Relations parties can govern entirely by natural principles. Agents are a temporary state of nature, insofar as no one state claims the right to kill without men acts, but trial and defense of its agents and citizens. It is stopped from denying the citizen the same right when the state is inaccessible. Any argument established that the state's right must rest upon the individual possessed the same right in the state's absence. The right to private self-defense must then be treated as a justification for killing. Second, the family itself is always in a state of nature. It's merely a unit in the state of nature. Predates society. Blunden. Within the family, right does not exist because here the state of nature entails immediate relation of care, not right and justice. Only these relations of support break down, whereas the family property is passed down to the next generation. The constant rights you can have bearing when we talk about state of nature. No, these spirit emerge to form rational relations between subject. We have natural relations of mutual support governed, not by rational relations of law, but rather by intellectual relations based upon kinship. Third, marriage in which one partner has more control, the other don't constitute mutually binding agreements. Kant rights. The relation of partners in marriage is a relation of equality of possession, and equality both in possession of each other's person. Same consideration are applicable in more organic marriage, which takes advantage of the inequality of the state of two parties to one of them domination of the other. In fact, more organic marriage, no true marriage. This can be regarded as conflicting natural equality of a couple if the dominance is based only on the natural superiority of the husband, the wife, and capacity for the common interest of the household. Finally, a right to subjective self-defense is always permissible in the state of nature. Ripstein 2. Your right to defend yourself against aggressive wrestling, you believe someone is wrongfully attacking you in the state of nature, only you, a position judge, whether you are under attack, continue to defer to anyone else, defend judgment about when something in fact case of aggression lies up to use mere means, the question of apparent aggressor, the difficulty with failing to defend yourself is clear. This takes our arguments that place constraints on self-defense, but the state of nature, no such constraints exist. If the act refers to a less subjective perception of the threat, their independence is compromised. Underview. My interpretation of the affirmative vote entails endorse the proposition is true, the resolution is true. The negative vote entails endorse the proposition it is true, the resolution is false. The truth of the statement is a function of whether words and sense in fact refer to true facts about the world. Arguments that violate this include word picks because they advocate changing the word of the resolution to one with a different sense, but the same reference. Best case, the pick to prove the resolution true. Worst case, they lose. They don't negate the resolution. Truth is a necessary part of any statement, so only a truth-tracing paradigm is coherent. Frege. We cannot recognize the property of a thing without at the same time realizing the thought of the thing's property has to be true. With every property of a thing is one the property of thought, namely that of truth. And sense, I smell the scent of violets. As it does the same, the meaning of the sentence is true. I smell the scent of violets, so it seems nothing's added, but my ascribing it the property of truth.
Can you put this in order?
Yeah. You have the last page already, right?
Yeah, I got it. Thank you. Okay, what is the implication of the last part?
The Frege evidence?
Yep.
It says that implicit in any statement is a true functional sentence. Well, any statement is necessarily assumed that.
What does that get you?
That means truth testing is the only coherent paradigm.
Okay, so what does that mean? How does that change burden as opposed to if you didn't read that part?
I mean, like, I'm saying it excludes word picks.
Okay.
Alright. Like, if you want to say, like.
And what is a word pick? So if I say it is impermissible instead of permissible, that's
Right,
not
like,
a word
as long as
pick,
you have
right?
a different sense, then that's fine.
Okay.
Oh, sorry,
so,
different
so impermissible is not a
reference.
word pick for permissible, right?
I mean, yeah, no.
Okay. That seems reasonable.
By the way, that was Kant evidence, the third one.
What?
The third piece of evidence, the contention was Kant evidence.
Is that, am I supposed to? Oh, you meaning that? No, that's not. Remember? Yeah. No, it was.
Okay, in this card it says the same considerations also hold for
Which card?
the Kant card, and then you change the word instead of also hold for, you put are not applicable in. How does this make sense?
Alright, so he was talking about concubinage and how that's
Well,
bad.
okay, the sentence is just the same considerations hold for a morganatic marriage. Then you change it to the same considerations are not applicable in a morganatic
Right.
marriage.
He says this is a good marriage. Concubinage.
I'm just wondering
if you
how that.
If you read the underlined part, it's talking about like concubinage and how that's
So why,
like
why
not
did you need
mutually
to
binding.
change the what is the purpose of the change?
I mean, it just like made it more word efficient. I mean, you want to
Changing
read that?
also
I can like maximize the text for you on my computer if you want to read the whole
I'm
card.
just, okay.
I mean, it talks about how concubinage is bad and says there is no quality in concubinage. The same considerations are here as well.
Okay.
I mean,
All right. Okay, 45. NCAC,
can you flip pages, please?
for sure. I'm reading the NC on here, but I can
That would be so.
read it from up here. And then after I'm done with the NC, I'll get back.
Okay.
Right. Is everyone ready?
Shut up, Noah.
Alright. Ready? I negate all moral theories presuming that random unqualified killing is prima facie permissible because theories about killing self-defense or other forms of deadly force seek to justify the action on the basis of specific circumstances that render the action permissible. Therefore, the resolution burden is when the action of the act defense prescribes permissible means the condition based on circumstances surrounding the act. If I prove that justification based on instances, act tokens of a general instance, act type can never be called permissible or rather excusable than negate because the AC justified killing based on act token instance of act type or general act provided the non justification release to excuse or relief of act spent justification release to excuse the specific application of the AC is that he's talking about when it was permissible to kill in self-defense as opposed to killing generally being permissible. Obviously, killing is generally impermissible under his framework because that's like contradicting the maximum or you like restrict freedom of others. But in this case, he's saying that when the state fails, and that instance also he's talking about the subjective belief of the victim, which is an epistemic justification rather than non justification. So it links to the excuse framework. Then I'll deal with the word pick stuff later. It's not a word pick. Wright explains. To say that an act is impermissible, to say that by virtue of being a certain kind it would be impermissible unless it would some other morally relevant kind of that be, it's being of this other kind, with it's being a former kind for a circumstance to find all act types in which the act tokens is an instance. Hence, say that the particular act of violence V is prima facie impermissible, say the V is of an act type, say violent act whose instance are in fact impermissible, except when they also have some other morally relevant act type in which his V is morally permissible. Epistemic moral justification then refers to the arguments often in support of the belief that a prima facie moral wrong is ontically justified with respect to an act of violence V to say the prima facie that if he's ontically more justified, say that V is not only impermissible act type, but also permissible act type in certain cases, say that V is epistemically justified, say that the agent is justified in believing that the act is morally permissible. Thus arguments about a given agent's belief provide epistemic as opposed to ontic justification. This is especially true because the belief is not necessarily consistent with ontic status. In these cases, it does not make sense to say the act itself is morally permissible if it's epistemically justified, that we can only morally excuse the agent from acting in a permissible way, which negates. Excuse says that the action is impermissible, but is excused. So it's not a word pick because it's still impermissible. And my question was whether impermissibility negates, and impermissibility does negate. Right, two. What follows is that an act of violence can be morally justified in the epistemic sense without being morally justified in the ontic sense. That is, one can have good grounds for believing that V is morally permissible even if it is not. In this case, it would make sense to say that the agent is doing V is morally excused due to non-culpable ignorance of the relevant facts, and that the agent is morally blameless for performing morally impermissible action. And moral excuse is different from moral permissibility. Right, and three explains. We distinguish between justification, violent acts, and excuse, but the action is morally justified is morally permissible. If an act is excused, it is not permissible, but the agent is blameless for performing the morally impermissible action. In fact, epistemic justifications based on beliefs such as those used in BWS theory, for example, are maximally resultant in institutional justification defense Millheiser. The focus upon the actor, not the act, is fundamentally an absent justification, and justification presupposes that an action should avoid conviction for misconduct because under the circumstances the action is laudable and conscious BWS theory does not base its argument upon the purpose of killing and battering male violence in society, rather is solely concerned with the debilitating effects of sexual abuse that cause women to engage in otherwise criminal conduct. This means that arguments about the actor do not show that any action itself is not bad because they analyze belief for circumstance rather than ontic status. They could just prove that the actor should not be held responsible as turns the act because you cannot call the use of the deadly force morally permissible. Also, even if you was to think that the act is a permissibility defense, you should still prefer an excusability defense because excuse captures advantages of permissibility while avoiding the disadvantages associated with an act that encourages deliberate killing. Millheiser 2. When a conduct conduct is justified. It tells others that the object engaged in state behaviors is doing so is beneficial. Justified conduct is the moral and socially responsible thing to do. When conduct is accused of analysis, the conduct harms society and the conduct is morally wrong. It also expresses the judgment that it would be unjustifiable to the actor liable for reasons that are unique to the actor and circumstances. The philosophical distinction between justification and excuse that we should draw, and the moral implications that follow from this are provided. Finally, even if self-defense is justification claim, it generally affirms meaning the excuse claim would be better to avoid problems with justification is applied to domestic non-civilians. Rosen. Subjective stands inevitably increase the number of mistakes that will be held reasonable, therefore increase the extent of killings that will justify despite their incompatibility with the theoretical basis for justification. Therefore, future actions confronted with the same circumstance have legal right to do the exact same thing. The result may be to encourage self-help killings when the victim may be innocent. They have been less helpful motives arranging victims of domestic abuse license to kill their abusers because the defense requires the use of subjective standard reasonable substantial expansion of traditional concepts of proportionality, necessity, and immediacy. If the self-defense was classified as an excuse, the defense could be incorporated easily into the law of self-defense without raising these concerns. AC. So, first, starting at the bottom on the word picture. So, is a double bind. Either A, it is not a word pick in which I get all of these things, and A is impermissible, or B, anything is a word pick because I could replace the word permissible in the resolution with the word impermissible. This argument just says it is impermissible but excused in this circumstance. So let him come to the next page to try to extend these arguments. I'm fine with the phrase argument. My burden is just proof that it is true that the resolution is false. So it is true that it is morally impermissible for the agent to take the action, but it is morally excusable for the agent to take the action. That is not inconsistent with my position. Go to the top of the AC on, actually, I can see the general arguments. Go to the framework. The top. First, as a general overview too, on the number one, as the number one on the rationality, closed rationality argument. It doesn't matter whether you can question or not question the concepts, because concepts can be questioned using assumptions, but concepts themselves is analogous to a reductio ad absurdum argument. Enoch writes, in order to lodge a skeptical attack on logic, the skeptic is going to have to use some logic. The argument that use of logic doesn't mean fail. Skeptical challenges highlight tensions within our own commitments. As paradoxes argue for an unacceptable conclusion premises, we endorse the philosophical challenges not to defeat a real person who advocates the skeptical view, but rather to solve the paradox. The skeptic is entitled to use logic because we are committed to the legitimacy of doing so. Think of the situation as an analog of a reductio ad absurdum argument. A good reductio argument to some certain claim, only prove it false. That means you cannot just assume that reason is self-enclosing, because just because you assume that reason is true doesn't mean you can still use a reductio ad absurdum argument to prove it false, even if you can't justify it. Then on the arguments about generally as an overview of this framework. This assumes a meta-ethical frame of constitutivism. Constitutivism is not ground normativity because the wide moral question still escapes the moral skeptic. It's like an answer to Korsgaard and Ripstein. Enoch writes, why should I be an agent? Perhaps I cannot act without aiming at self-constitution. Why should I act? I'm perfectly happy being a shmagent and non-agent practice in very similar ways, but lacks the aim for self-constitution. I'm perfectly happy performing shmactions. Consider again the example of the house and the shoddy builder in sports. We managed to convince him that certain standards of constitution of being a house he is entitled to run. Well, then I guess I'm building a schmouse. So what is it to me how you classify my project? The reasons do not become stronger when you realize that unless he complies with the bodily movements, will not be adequately described as actions. The problem is not the action does not have a constitutive aim. The problem is that have a constitutive strategy can ground normativity. That means that you cannot derive normativity from agency. You need some sort of external criterion of success. You cannot say that rationality has to be derived from the self. Then also on the Korsgaard and Ripstein 1 arguments. Moral norms cannot be constitutive of agency. This is another response to constitutivism, because any principle that involves a commitment must allow for the possibility of it being violated. Korsgaard does not have her cake and eat it too. Near Ben Moshe explains, there's a tension between moral norms being constitutive of agency and the possibility of violating such norms. Korsgaard thinks that moral principles are constitutive of agency. However, we must have the possibility of violating moral principles. Practically, we'd be obligated if it's not within our agent possibilities to violate the principle X. Korsgaard says that this is a condition of the agency of the error is constrained imperativism, and agents establish the principle only if there's some kind of action such that if the agent did issue, thereby violate the principle. It's possible for the agent to do it. And trying to understand what agents ought to do, constitutivism draws us toward what agency is, whereas imperativism forces us away by insisting the agent cannot be as they ought. So if one exercises the capacity to act when it's committed by principle X, but simultaneously capacity to act part of capacity to violate principle X, then if it's constitutive of agency but to fall and violate the principle, we can no longer derive an intelligible commitment single from the nature of agency. Also on the Ripstein arguments. The ideal of non-domination of a rightful law should not exist. We should be concerned about how our principles affect welfare. Todros explains, any plausible account of rights must take seriously the significance towards the reason why others we should assume some people do not suffer burden simply in virtue of other choices. For example, if a curious person puts herself in danger by entering a building site, we're less inclined to provide her compensation if she is injured. In this way, we ensure that the particular purposes she sets herself to not create obligations on others. Ripstein's account is an extreme way of giving this ideal significance. Then good at the contention arguments. First, on the Thompson Evans one, there's no warrant as to why the fact that the state doesn't exist means that you transfer rights to individuals. There's no warrant by the transfer occurs. Second, it's infinitely aggressive because the state doesn't exist in infinite number of points. For example, if somebody punches you, the state doesn't stop it, then that would justify you using any sort of violence in response, which means it obviously has to be some sort of constrained arguments, which is what it says. So the state alone being absent is not sufficient to prove the resolution prove the arguments to. Then on the blunder arguments, it makes no sense because they also would apply in terms of everything being permissible. Also based on Todros Evans, welfare is relevant. So the arguments that threats of divorce or sanctions are better. Saunders writes, even though many bad women may aggressively defend themselves from attack, may be legally justified in doing so. Available evidence suggests that action will probably make things worse. Then 77% of those who tried to develop reported that escalated violence. Backer said that an aggressive response escalated man's violence and divorce, so that's invoke criminal justice sanctions. Backer concluded that method worked because it improved the balance of power between the partners. This also answers the conflict on the balance of power.
Can I see the stuff you read, please, off your computer?
Yep, sure.
Thank you.
Here and then there.
Alright. What is the moral framework in the NC? Or do you not advocate one?
It's the same moral, it's not a moral framework. It's just saying that.
Right. We'll get to excuse for its justification later. But do you advocate an ethical theory?
No, because I'm not challenging the.
So you're not challenging practical reason right? Full honor.
No, I mean, I'm denying your theory, right? So I am denying that on the AC
So
framework.
what is the implication of you winning the framework debate?
I don't know. There's no reason for why they would kill in self-defense. Why would it be permissible?
So like,
There's no justification for that.
okay, so there'd be no.
There are also
stand-
reasons on the NC. There are also
Okay.
reasons on the AC why you would like do other things.
Right,
rather
right.
than
So
that.
there would be no standard of the round if you win every single card on the AC framework.
I don't know what you mean. My argument is that the NC would still function, right?
Right, right. I understand that, but if you win every single card on the AC
There's not a
framework,
separate ethical framework advocated by the NC.
there's no separate ethical
There's not
framework.
a separate ethical framework. No.
Oh, okay, cool. Let's talk about this. The NC. Did you read all of it?
I read everything that I told you. I read at the bottom.
Oh, no, like up here in like the.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So what is it? If you prove justifications in the general instance can never be permissible rather than excusable, you negate.
What do you mean? Are you just reading it or like?
So what is your burden? Is your burden is to prove that the action
My
cannot be.
my burden is to prove that the resolution is impermissible for.
Okay.
Acting that way. Of course.
Let's talk about the last two Milheiser and the Milheiser and the Rosen. What are you advocating? You say excuse captures these benefits. Are you advocating moral excusability?
My argument is that,
Is that your advocacy?
my argument is that your advocacy is not a permissibility claim, it is an excuse claim. But even if it is a permissibility claim, my argument is that excuse claims are better. Excuse claims are net ground because they are
Okay, yes,
impermissible.
that's fine. But your advocacy is it is
Right.
excusable
It is
for
Mhm.
victims of domestic violence. Okay, so that is the text
Sure,
of your
and it's not a
advocacy.
word pick because it says it's impermissible, right? So there's
Okay.
a difference.
And what's the warrant in this? Start with a T. I don't think I have it. The
The what?
tar something.
Oh, here, sure.
Yeah.
So.
What's the warrant in that
I think
card? Tardros. Yeah.
So the warrant talks about how, well, if you read the first part, it talks about how, because like Ripstein and others value the nature of agency in terms of choice, you have to take into account how other people's choices, or how your choices affect other people's ends of their choices. So you have to talk about welfare absent.
Okay.
You have to talk about welfare. You can't just talk about, like, no end state.
Uh, 329. So we go new off case. NC, AC. All right, is everyone ready? Is everyone ready? All right. So new off, NC, AC. A, my interpretation that the app doesn't run an essay but it's sufficient burden, the neg may not run an essay but it's sufficient burden, abuse violation. His excuse for justification arguments are abusive because I need to prove that A, the act in the resolution is capable of being justified, and B, that it is in fact justified by some moral metric, and I have to hedge my benefits against the counterclaim. Drew, I'm sorry, this is the actual abusive argument, because that is exactly what he is doing. He says that you have to prove that A, it is capable of being justified, and B, I have to weigh the benefits against some sort of counterclaim. So it's a necessary but insufficient condition. He admits this cross-examination. First you need to prove that, and then the counterclaim. And the standard is ground. So I can't turn the NC, the case law is conditional, and they can always keep the case to brutal times. I can't for position. If I have no stable absent engaged, they have to overallocate on deep the breast because everything else around where else out can lift the ab standard out where when the neg case was not simply given twice as many abs for rebuttal excuse strategies. I was forced to overallocate on defense the NC, which forced me to undercover toward the foe. Second, necessary because burden skew ground side need to meet the truth and then demonstrate the multiple basis of by some other metrics. So the only to die one step of the argument, ground skew fairness, the basic wage mark arguments, and is a voter fairness because one the value makes debate competitive rules for training behavior and two to get wage and anti-post theory was you toward the abuse debate that originally argument insufficient. Three, only without can truly deter abusive arguments and theories of interpretation of reasonability based upon a gut check for an objective evaluation of offense based upon the arguments debaters make. Then go to the NC. group the first three written cards that don't, so they're not part of the counter plan. 1. To explain what an action is, you don't just need the doing, you also need the object of the action. The goal is part of the action, bodily move, the end matter. Meaning that killing is self-defense is okay to the state of nature. Instances, different act types, since different world rules are applicable to it. It's not the circumstances that have changed, it's different world rules that apply to the two realms. 3, because the state of nature is primary to entering into civil society, killing is permissible in itself initially. That's the basic idea. Then circumstances take me enter into civil society, so killing is by default permissible. Finally, even if the act of killing is permissible, there's no reason why self-defense isn't an action, not an act type. It doesn't make any sense to just take a verb and evaluate that, since the world rules operate in a discrete system of different things. There's no way we can just judge the action of killing as permissible or impermissible. There are other dimensions of moral evaluation. I'm going to counterplan stuff. The Milheiser 2 and Rosen. The AC functions as a net benefit if I can prove permissibility that these don't matter. AC framework. Let's talk about how the framework debate works. All of his cards that he's reading on the framework debate are defense. Defense is a reason to prefer another framework because there's no offense on the framework debate. Problem for him is there is no alternative ethical framework in the NC. I press him on this in cross-examination. This means that even if every single one of his indicts to my framework are true, you still prefer my framework because there's still a risk of it being true, and B, it's the only way you can evaluate the round on substance. So, except that morality has to be based on reason. The only foundation morality isn't infinitely grasped. I can ask why, Z, but I can't ask why should I be moral, so that's reason to be sufficient for anyone. Because that's a closed question. If it's something in the universe not moral, then reason to be sufficient for anyone independent of circumstance. Try to universalize the maximum someone else's data freedom and extend your own that results in contradictions to one book extension limitation. Your own and others' freedom at the same time. That's the Angstrom evidence. But remember, in interpersonal affairs, perspective freedom takes the form of yourself to set ends and preserve your own power to set ends for yourself. That's Ripstein 1, so extend the standard of preserve rightful honor. Then go to the Tartakovsky evidence he's reading. 1, this is the same argument as Comiskey. We don't need to maximize the amount of rationality. We just need to preserve rationality unconditionally. That's what my framework argument say. To the state of nature takes that because there are no constraints upon action. Thompson. Extend Thompson during incident of violence. The state fails its obligation to protect the victim during the meeting when the state fails to protect the citizen. Temporary state of nature has been induced to conflict with the citizen. The state has been nullified because the state doesn't uphold its end of the bargain. This means that any type of self-defense is justifiable as no constraints on action exist in the state of nature. Go to his responses. His first argument is that there's no warrant, but I just extended a warrant. Call for the Thompson card after the round if you don't think there's a warrant there. Off the number 2, he says simply aggressive, but 1, he appeals to intuition. He's not making any sort of logical argument or making some sort of impact back to any sort of framework. He just says, oh, it'd be crazy if someone could punch you in the face, and that would trigger the state of nature. It might be crazy, but the only person who's using logos in this round is the affirmative.
Alright. Don't tell me how much time I have. I think I did
45.
45? Yeah. Alright, good. I see the theory.
He came off with multiple sheets of paper.
Cool.
So,
I get the toggles back.
interp.
Right.
Ground was
I just
part
need
here.
the toggles.
Sorry. I don't think I have it.
You, okay.
Toggles?
Yeah.
I don't think I have it.
You
I'll look for
you
it.
asked for, oh. Yeah.
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 I don't have it in here.
Yep. That's right.
Okay, cool.
Okay. So starting on theory, then on AC, or sorry, so theory, then NC, then AC.
Is there a counter interpretation?
Yeah, there will be. There will be I needs first, but I think you can float on the same place. It's fine.
The NC and the counterpoint is all the same stuff, though,
Right.
right?
I didn't say. Oh, I said counter interpretation, not counterpoint.
Oh,
Can we start counter or?
We're just starting on theory now. I'm making.
yeah, who cares? Just-
All right. Right. Ready? Okay. I meet the interpretation. This is not a necessary but insufficient burden because it's questioning whether the AF affirms in the first place, like a top-calorie burden is assumed to be insufficient in the first place. My argument is that his AC does not prove permissibility, it proves excuse. That's like me saying that his AC does not prove that the resolution is true, i.e. he is not topical or he is not affirming the resolution. It is not an insufficient burden for me to then say that I have that excuse is negative ground because my argument is that excuse is never affirmative ground in the first place. So if I prove that the AC is just negative ground, it is not a necessary but insufficient burden because he can extend something from the AC that says permissibility, that it justifies permissibility and that it is better than the excuse claims that I'm arguing for. So he's misunderstanding how like the topicality issues that the NC is talking about is just not structured as the topicality shows. It's just a question of how the AC affirms. So you should not let him say that this interpretation is necessary but insufficient burden. But even if you think that this is a necessary but insufficient burden, my counter interpretation is that I am allowed to run one necessary but insufficient burden as long as that burden is questioning the topicality of the AC or whether the AC is sufficient to affirm in the first place. The standard, or go to this ground and Bernstein standards group them. There's infinite abuse if I'm not allowed to run this type of burden, because it means any AC would already have to be assumed to be topical or assumed to affirm the resolution, and I'm not going to be able to question that. That means anything will be AFGROUND in the first place. It means I cannot run excuse NCs ever, because it means that I cannot question whether the AC is a excuse or justification claim, which means it turns back all the arguments about ground and burden scoop, because those are significantly mitigated, whereas my arguments, there's infinite abuse. And you should not be voting on this argument anyway, because it is not a necessary insufficient burden. Then go to the NC. So, first, he makes a drop on the top of the NC that all moral theories presume that random, unqualified killing is prima facie impermissible because theories about killing in self-defense or other forms of deadly force seek to justify the action on the basis of specific circumstances that would render the action permissible. This establishes that killing is a prima facie moral wrong, so takes out his response about why in the state of nature killing is initially always permissible. My argument is that all moral theories were treated as generally impermissible. He needs to be doing cross-applications of these arguments. You should not just give him embedded clash of these arguments, because he needs to be doing comparison. Then on his responses to right and first, I'll extend right and extend right evidence that says that there's a difference between when something is an act type or an act token. When something is an act type, it's just a general thing like killing, whereas an act token is just an instance of that application, which means that is an instance when you're doing it in self-defense and when the state isn't there, that is an act type. That means that you cannot prove that something, or the implication from that argument is in the right and two evidence. It means you cannot prove that an act token is morally permissible, because it is only a general subset of the act type. So he's conceding those arguments. Then let's go to his responses. His number one is you need an object, or you need to be goal-oriented. My argument is that a goal for you, like i.e. self-defense, is a condition, that is what an act token is. If you have a certain goal, or if you're in a certain circumstances, that is the point of the NC. His number two is that it is not circumstantial, i.e. killing is generally permissible, but I've already answered that argument. You should not give him leeway in terms of killing being impermissible, because his whole framework establishes that initially killing is not permissible, because his argument about Ripson, how you cannot extend your freedom against other people's freedom. So those arguments say that killing is generally impermissible. He's also dropping that argument, that his framework already assumes that. Then on number three, I'll say this was number three, about state of nature being generally permissible. Then on number four, he says there's no difference between an act type and an act token. My argument is that the right evidence contextualizes what the difference is. An act type is a general act killing without any sort of specific circumstance, like a goal or any sort of context. My argument here is that one, he is proving that it is from the subjective perspective of the victim, which is a circumstance. Two, is in a situation where the state fails, and two, in situations where the state fails. Then he says the AC is a net benefit. No, it's not a net benefit, because he has to prove that it's a permissibility claim in the first place as opposed to an excuse claim. The AC arguments don't talk about it being permissibility versus excuse. So if I win this argument independently of whether he's winning that his AC is a sufficient condition of affirming, he's not answering the arguments that you should prefer excuse over permissibility. So he should not be able to use answers to the framework of the NC to answer this argument, because even if there's no difference between an act type and an act token, you should still prefer the excuse arguments on the bottom. So extend the Millheiser 2 evidence that excuse captures all the advantages of permissibility while avoiding the disadvantages associated with an ethic encouraged deliberate killing. When you encourage deliberate killing is worse because it increases the choice of mistakes. That is also the internal warning of the Rosen evidence that subjective standards inevitably increase the number of mistakes that will be held. So if you incorporate an excuse claim into self-defense as opposed to the permissibility claim, that is better. So that means that I win on the NC, even if he's winning AF arguments. Then let's go to the AF arguments. Okay. I can concede that the AC framework is contextualized, that it takes out all the constitutive answers, but the problem is that the Todders evidence made, my argument from the Todders evidence is the answer in cross-examination is that means that welfare is important, i.e. end states are relevant, so that still means that the turn on the bottom of the AC, the Todders evidence still applies because the end states are relevant, so all I have to do is deal with the Todders evidence. So go to the Todders. Extend that the ideal of non-domination of rightful honor should not exist because we should be concerned with how our principles affect welfare. The warrant is that rights must take the significance of choice, because part of the reason is that we should ensure that some people do not suffer burden simply in virtue of others' choices. His number one is that this is the same as Comiskey argument. No, this is not the same as Comiskey arguments. Comiskey argument is about how I needed to maximize the ability of people to have rationality, but this is about choices others make. The example he gives is if a person puts herself in danger by entering a building site, we are not inclined to provide her with compensation if she is injured because she has made the choice, i.e. she has forfeited her right, and that is the implications that we ensure that the particular purposes she sets herself do not create obligations on others. That is talking about the end that we set as opposed to maximizing sort of general concept of rationality, but the implication is that Ripstein's account is an extreme way of getting the ideal significance, so the implication is that we have to talk about welfare as opposed to just general arguments about our choices. So that means you can go to the contention of the AC first. Okay. On the Thompson evidence, extend my number two response that it is infinitely aggressive because it means that you would always be in the state of nature because you would say you would always be in the state of nature because you would say that, for example, if somebody punches you and the government is not there, then you are allowed to do anything you want. He says that this is an intuitive appeal about how this would be wrong. My argument is this is not the intuitive appeal is that it would be always infinitely aggressive. So it means that there's a disjunction between the general AC framework about it being generally impermissible to kill, but then a condition of it being a state of nature. My argument is that if it is always permissible in that instance, then there's no way that the AC framework logically functions. Then on the response Saunders evidence. So, This is the problem. C drops the standards of the extent the threats of divorce or sanctions are better than defense or aggression because in 77% of instances those women who try to defend themselves reported an escalated violence. They said the actor study says the method worked best because it improved the balance of power between parties. My argument is that and the last piece of that it also solves that common argument because it makes it more equal between the two people. So the argument is that it is not permissible for, in terms of welfare, it is not permissible for you to use deadly force when there are better options because you would just use a comparative burden. So the way the argument down is not any necessary and insufficient burden, it's top quality burden. Even if it is, the abuse is really great if I'm not allowed to run these arguments. I'm winning the NC and then I'm winning the AC.
Sorry, what were your responses to the number 1 and the number 2 on Todris?
So, against the Comiskey argument, you mean?
Sure, against the Comiskey.
Sure. Okay, so it's not the Comiskey argument.
Why?
Because Comiskey's argument is different. Comiskey talks about how it's about maximizing rationality, right? That's why, like, Richard Dean in his article responds to Comiskey by saying
why is Todris different?
because Todris isn't talking about, like, our rationality or maximizing, like, people's ability to engage in rationality.
It's talking about choices, right? Which are.
It is talking about choice. It isn't talking about the ends that people set, but it just talks about how the ends include welfare. It doesn't talk about how, like, we need to maximize rationality. Alright, these are yours.
Nice.
Yep.